Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan. You're listening to the Red 78 here on the Rugby Channel. With me, as always, is Niamh Briggs. After a busy weekend, we'll chat about that with you in a few minutes, Niamh. We'll be getting on with the pod as normal in a little bit. But we're all about the fans here and engagement with the fans and messages to the Munster supporters. So we're joined and we're delighted to be joined by someone who's in the thick of Munster Rugby for a long time, Mark Meehan, Chairman of the Munster Rugby Supporters Club. Mark, you're very welcome and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Niamh. Good morning, Alan.
That's brilliant to have you, and chatting to you beforehand. You listen to the pod a good bit anyway, and you share it out with all your supporters. So just before we go on, we're going to talk about Cardiff and Toulouse, and it's such a big week for Munster, obviously, and there's been lots of positives in the last number of weeks. Behind the scenes, the supporters have always been mentioned about, and I know this from my own experience, the way they give people a lift, the players a lift. The Red Army travel all over Europe. They're synonymous with European Cup for many, many years. And as I said, I've experienced that myself. You've been on that journey as well, and being one of those supporters, you're now chairman. Just tell us a little bit about the Munster Rugby Supporters Club and the role they play and the benefits you offer to the supporters.
Yeah, super. We started in 2009. 1999. We started off with around 18 members sitting in a pub trying to figure out how they travel to games together. And actually today, if you add up the numbers, we've around 12,000 members. So quite a sophisticated volunteer organisation. The principle behind it is very pure. It's about supporting Munster Rugby. That's it. I suppose, as you would know, Alan and Niamh, Munster Rugby have multiple stakeholders, but I think all we ever really want is to be in the ground. And that's a great kind of value proposition to be able to sell. We have 2 points of contact who actually work in Munster Rugby, and we connect them with those daily. So it's not a turn up at the match organisation. It goes on every day. And we have our own Facebook, Instagram, social media platform, around 220,000 followers, which is significant enough. And we use that to, I suppose, spread the gospel about Munster Rugby. But I think the big thing we offer, not only on the match day, and Alan, you would notice even from your own mum going to the games, is that community, It's that extra layer that means when you're with Munster, you're part of this thing, a family, a community. And that's what the Supporters Club offers more than anything else. It's that unique collective of people that have a shared passion. But it's all about good fun. And I suppose finally, it's all about supporting the team and not wavering, not giving up.
And do you have a connection that you meet up at games, particularly the away games?
Sure.
Rally the troops as regards giving out flags, making sure there's enough colour in the stadium, all that kind of stuff. So it's more coordinated, the support, essentially.
Hugely, from the choir down to flags. So I'd be part of the flag team since around 2002. It's the same 8 of us give away flags since then every game, home and away.
Brilliant.
But we have our own bar in Ntamack Park. We're lucky to have it. Holds about 1,400 people.
That's very important to have your own bar now, Mark. Essential.
Overlooking the pitch, a great spot. Like in a kind of a way, and you would notice, Alan, and any of you would know the same, we see ourselves like as ambassadors, So any team we're hosting that's away, we open up our arms to the travelling support. We have a huge network of connection with the supporters clubs around Europe. Most times when we travel to Europe, at this stage, we usually stay in people's houses. We set up cross accommodation for folks. So it, in a lot of ways, it is unique. I've been looking at other supporters clubs in the last while, and I don't know, is there anybody has the connection that we're allowed to the professional game? So as I said to you, it's a daily thing. We're literally talking to Munster Rugby every day about how to make what we can do better with the pure intention of offering support.
Mark, I think that's probably why Munster is so unique. It's the ability to connect supporters with the players. You don't really see that very often across other provinces or other clubs, especially since the game has gone professional. Do you think that the fact that the Munster Club is so strong, the Munster Supporters Club, and that kind of community environment encapsulates that? Is that, do you think that's what keeps that professional game, but yet that kind of still amateur status, that we get to know all the players, and that we almost feel like that we know them? Like, as in, it's not like that they're over there and we're over here. I just feel like within Munster, there's a very kind of a family community stronghold, and I think that the supporters club are a huge reason for that.
I agree, but to be fair, I suppose, even in Exeter there a couple of weeks ago, what I noticed is that because of some of the young players coming through now, we've all these new generation of younger lads, Now at the start, you could suggest right now they're probably going just for the weekend away and the piss up. But what you're getting now is that connection with the younger generation. And that's the same thing that happened to us following Quinny and the lads, you know what I mean? With them week in, week in. And you can see that hook starting to dig in now again. And actually, when the team arrived at Exeter in the away game, all those folks that were waiting outside the stadium, the first thing is it was coordinated by the MRSC. That doesn't happen by accident. So we were going around to groups of people saying, the team are arriving at this time, here's the gate, be there. But the other thing I noticed is that most of them were under 30. A lot of the old timers like myself were no longer spring chickens. So anything we can do demographically to lower the age. But can I say this to you, in the professional world of sport, that connection is hard to maintain, it just doesn't happen by itself. It takes a lot of work, and all our messaging that we put out, all our communications that we put out are grounded in trying to grow that. Sometimes you get a sense in Munster Rugby for a period of years, the support may have been like at times an anchor, kind of weighing them down, but that's not what we want to be. We want to be the opposite. We want to be lifting them up. We want them to know it's not about the W or the L, That's not why we follow Munster. It's bigger than that for us.
We speak a lot of the time about the support and how important it is to Munster, but also you're right, that pressure valve, because it's Munster, we feel, that we should be winning trophies. But that, it's really difficult. We've also spoken about how difficult it is to win. But I think over the last while, we've seen a kind of an almost turn, a shift in terms of the mentality. It's not like it's not like they were never trying, but we just see now this kind of probably freedom, I suppose, in terms of how they're playing, and that ability to, for the Munster support to get behind them. We're seeing, big hits, we're seeing big carries, we're seeing them move the ball now. And I think that's, as a Munster fan, I think that's all we're looking for, really, isn't it?
It is, but I think also, Niamh, and like you'd know this being in the media, often the 5% of people rule the narrative,
Yeah.
Like the other 95% of folks can see the players trying hard week on week. I mean, because we've so many social media platforms, we see the comments coming in. But for example, on Facebook, I know there's about 25 people, no matter how good Munster are going to do, are negative.
Yeah.
I do know is there's 80,000 people who'll put up a lovely comment to the team saying, well done, lads, we're with you. And I'm saying to you, that's one of the challenges, isn't it? To make sure that the narrative is of the 85,000 rather than the small numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, I think people are entitled to their opinions, and look, we're also very aware that parts of the season haven't been good enough, and it's important that we're not literally patronizing people or players. I think that the players know that too. But I just feel like there's been a shift over the last few weeks, especially since maybe that Leinster game where they lost in Thomond Park. I feel like that there's been a little bit of a shift in terms of how they're playing, and I suppose first of all, over 25,000 tickets sold for this weekend's game against Toulouse. How many is it? 31. Amazing. Incredible. I think, to be fair to Munster, in terms of ticket pricing and the buses, has been huge. It's really. But I presume that you're also driving that in the background.
To be fair to Munster, it's Philip Quinn and a fella called Paul Ringer running the buses, but we live in MRSC store doing a bus mammy on every bus, to make sure everybody gets there and to make sure everybody gets back.
That's the most important part.
Yeah. And we live MRSC volunteers in the Aviva with Munster people on Friday, putting out flags and all the other good stuff, putting some flags in the dressing room to Munsterise the dressing room. So anything we can do to add value, we're going to be doing for sure.
That's class. Quickly, how can people sign up to this, and what's the best way to get involved?
We're in the renewal phase at the moment. Just quickly, if I may, can I just run through some of the benefits, because they're quite large?
Yeah, go for it.
It's a 25% discount off a season ticket price. So if you can imagine the price of all the tickets together minus 25%. So we have, without doubt, the best value in Munster Rugby in terms of getting the games. For every URC game outside Leinster, you can bring 2 kids free, which is amazing. It's an amazing deal. We've our own newsletter, we've our own bar, we've our own membership pack, we've our own Q&A events with players, etc., etc. So there's so many multiple benefits that we get from being the supporters club. Since COVID, we moved into a kind of a growth mindset for a while there, as you can imagine. We're just trying to hold what we have, but we're really eager now to grow. And demographically, we are trying to create an environment where we get a lot of younger people now to join with us and stay with us. We do have a junior club of 5,000 people, which is sponsored by a company, Inver Green Energy. And what we're trying to do now is have as many people over the age of 18 join us, particularly in the next couple of years, so we can keep it going. We want to train to keep moving in the right direction.
It's that time of year again, Mark, isn't it? To try
right in the middle of it. MRSC.ie. We have old members, new members. You can pay over 9 months. You can pay in one-up stage payments. So to be fair to Munster, they do everything they possibly can to get folks to join. But bigger than that, you're joining something different. It is a community. You can go to any game anywhere on your own, and there'll be someone from the MRSC to give you a bit of a comfort hug, welcome you into the group.
And that's really important. Right. Obviously, it's an incredible week. Just to finish, Toulouse on Saturday. The Red Army will be there in force again. It's a home game, even though there's, probably because of Ed Sheeran, it's in the Aviva. There was some talk of frustration about that, but it is a home game, and I'm sure the Munster supporters will turn out again this weekend.
Munster Rugby usually give us a pre-sale, so we had that. So what we tried to do there, in fact we did manage it, is all the lower tier of the Aviva, it's going to be full of the MRSC. So we're going to turn the lower tier of the Aviva into the Thomond Park terraces. We're going to turn it into an incredible environment, atmosphere to drive the team.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, Mark, look, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the week. Fingers crossed for the weekend, and thanks for sharing the pod as well. I think these kind of things, what you're trying to achieve, it's all about the media as well, and getting those messages out on different platforms to get them out. So we were delighted to have you on, Mark, and hopefully we'll see you on Saturday, and Munster will be celebrating a win against an incredible team.
I believe they will, and thanks for your time, and thanks for what you do as well.
Thanks a million to Mark Meehan, there, the chairman of the Munster Rugby Supporters Club. He was brilliant, Niamh, wasn't he?
Yeah, super. And to be fair, I've come across them quite a bit, especially in away trips. So they are a unique bunch. I think that following that Munster have is so important to the club.
Sometimes we take it for granted and we think it's just going to happen. But as Mark said, it's coordinated as well. So it's brilliant to have him on. So don't forget to sign up anyway for any listeners who haven't already or not members. Getting on to your game Saturday night in Belfast, Niamh, drama, joyous scenes at the end. It was pretty nervous though. I'm sure you were sitting on the edge of your coaching seat there. And then obviously what happened at the end with Ntamack Briggs' try and conversion was phenomenal.
Yeah, look, it was obviously the last 5 minutes for sure were definitely not good for the soul from a coaching point of view. And the first 75 were obviously incredibly frustrating because we definitely didn't play to our potential. But to go and to hang in there and to not be in the game for huge amounts of time, but still be in it, if that makes sense, and to deny Scotland points, I think was huge, especially in that first 20-25 minutes of the second half where Scotland basically camped inside our kind of 22 territory type. So it was great. It was brilliant. It was so important for this group. Quinny, you've no idea the resilience that they have, that belief to be able to go back up the pitch with 77 minutes on the clock and to camp inside the Scottish line. I thought we'd lost it a couple of times trying to force it, but delighted for Enya. I think it's been she's had a bidder time, especially for the first 3 games, but she's grown hugely as a player and a person over this campaign, so it's been brilliant.
The disruptions you had with 7 players away, obviously big defeat to England as well. So it probably wasn't easy to get the team working as a cohesive unit. But I like the fact that Greg has been pretty honest. You have as well, that there is issues and there is areas that you need improvement on. Are you confident that a result like this can obviously give you a feel good factor, but make you believe that, you know, the character is there, but the skills need to get better, and that's work that needs to be done going forward and can be done.
Yeah, hugely. Look, I think for us, we kind of always felt that this group they have something special. It's just about trying to give them as much tools to be able to go and compete at international level. I think for them, to be able to come back and win like that was huge, especially after, as you're right, the English defeat the previous week was tough coming back into camp on Wednesday. And we obviously had a lot of injury issues from that game, a lot of sore bodies, 6-day turnaround, no sevens players. So it was always going to be a big ask for them. But going into the summer program now, so we've a couple of weeks off, and then they start to go again. It's really important that they hold on to that resilience, that grit, because that's there. And now we've just got to try, as you say, improve the skill development, improve the conditioning, improve our strength work, because we've got a big summer ahead of work before we head to Japan.
Just before we finish, was it an enjoyable period of time for you, the coaches, the players? Obviously, you probably love to rewind the clock and play Wales again at the start. And the expectation before the tournament was France and England are a level above, and you want to try and compete, at least be on that level below with Scotland, Wales and Italy, and be beating them. Did you enjoy the number of weeks, or was it? It brings its own stress, I'm sure, being a coach, but did you enjoy it?
Yeah, hugely. Look, it was unbelievable. I learned so much, I think. And you're right. I think when you separate the emotion from the process and understand that every week you're doing things that you're trying to work on off the pitch or in training or through walkthroughs, it gives you great hope. It gives you great hope that this group can go somewhere. They're a brilliant bunch off the pitch. There was a good bit of crack back at the hotel afterwards. And look, it's been a brilliant, say, 10 weeks. I couldn't have asked for anything better in terms of, you're right. I'd love to go back and replay that Wales game. We all would, but I also think that we'll have learned way more from winning that, from losing that, than winning it. I think that's going to be the most important lesson for us.
Okay, well, it was good that it was obviously a positive finish, and fine margins in sport. You could have been a wooden spoon, but you got 2 wins out of the 5, and plenty to work on, as you say. But everybody, the whole country was delighted, and it was a good night for women's sport. Katie Taylor later on that night as well. So it was brilliant. I just loved the emotion and the fact that I think they worked incredibly hard. They made mistakes in the games that you highlighted and Greg highlighted. But I think it's lovely to see that emotion. It was hard on Scotland, but you probably owe them one after that World Cup qualifier. Okay, so we'll obviously move on now and talk about the Munster games. As always, we want you to be involved, the fans, the supporters, the listeners, to get your involvement, give us your opinions. We'll try and share those opinions, dissect them. We want them to be fair, so you can get involved by tweeting us at Rugby Channel 15, or tweet Niamh and myself, or leave a comment on YouTube where you get the podcast. So you have some tweets. I put a tweet out yesterday about the performance, 42-21 against Cardiff on Friday night, assessing that game, and obviously looking ahead to a mammoth task against Toulouse next Saturday.
Yeah, look, I thought I thought the game against Cardiff was really good in patches. Definitely, we'll need something extra for Toulouse this weekend. But in relation to that tweet, Ian Moore came out, good win against Cardiff, a bit loose, but overall they did what was required. It kept up the momentum. It's simple this week: match their scrum, raid the line out, attack the breakdown, and keep their halfbacks quiet. Stay in the game and get the crowd involved. Ian makes it sound very easy, to be sure. Adrian O'Donoghue, a weekly lister, don't underestimate how good Cardiff were. Well-oiled machine, moved the ball fast through the hands. It was a great result for Munster. All the confidence in the win against Toulouse. Plenty of support travelling from the Ballincollig under 16s and 18s and a half teams travelling. Cian O'Connor, quite narrow in slow in the first half, would have been punished by a better team. Grew into it and finished well. I'd start Murray, as Casey brings energy and unpredictability from the bench. Might just be what's needed late on. Looks like it's coming together for Carberry too. What's your thoughts on that, Quinny, in relation to the Casey Murray, because I've been listening to a lot, obviously reading a lot online, watched the game back this morning, and yeah, I think people's opinions are definitely divided.
There's for and against, and it is quite divided. A lot of the papers are talking about, that selection situation. The way Craig Casey has grown as a player, I think his pace, his energy that he brings. I'm divided. I'm not sure. I think Conor Murray is still an exceptional player. I think when he plays himself, he can be phenomenal. I think his kicking game is really good. And, Munster have kind of moved a little bit from kicking unnecessarily. Every team needs to kick the ball. They're still all, consistently in around the mid-20s in the kicks they make in games. Dupont and Ntamack are incredible players, and we will talk about them in a little while. But also that Toulouse pack is incredibly physical. Their back row, very, very strong, powerful. Front row, a lot of ball carriers. And I just think Conor Murray makes an awful lot of tackles. He's involved in a lot of turnovers. He had some big turnovers against Exeter. If he plays well and has that bit of buzz about him, he can be exceptional for Munster on Saturday against Toulouse. The issues that we've had with Conor, and maybe I've had it, he's an incredible player, but probably the way Munster were playing makes him look bad, which he's not, because he's a world-class player and has proven himself many, many times over the years. The way they're playing now, yeah, that would suit anyone. You want to pass the ball, you want to move, you want to attack more. The conditions are much better this time of year. And there is an argument to say, well, Craig Casey coming on, he offers you that bit of zip and energy. But, well, that's the idea of any bench players coming on, that they do that. But I'm thinking if you're bringing Craig Casey on, you're chasing the game. If you're bringing Conor Murray on, he certainly has that experience to kind of make good decisions and his decision making and see out the game. So
yeah,
you start Conor Murray, if you start Craig Casey and you're behind and you're chasing the game, well, there's a difference then. And that doesn't mean that Conor Murray can't quickly pick up the speed of the game. Of course he can. But I'd probably go for Conor Murray because he's an exceptional player, his experience, his decision making. But I just hope, and the hope from all of us, is that Munster don't revert to type a little bit and try and slow the game down. Of course, you have to manage the game, but that they don't kind of kick a lot of possession away. I think they did really well against Toulouse last year. They exposed them. They held on to the ball for long periods in that game in Thomond Park last year in the quarter-final. Or in the round 16 game, they were beaten 40 points to 33. And the attack wasn't a problem. It was the defensive stuff. And I just think Conor Murray brings great solidity in defence as well. He's a brilliant player. So I don't know. I'd go with Conor Murray.
I'm the same on that as well. Just finished Paul Maher texted or tweeted in, good things, less penalties given away, more turnover, looking to go forward, belief, grit and aggression, things to get right for next week, 80 minutes of being in their face, hitting everything that moves. Defensive alignment needs to be solid, aggression, grit and belief. And I like this part, and especially the last part, that defensive alignment. I felt at times against Cardiff the other day, we didn't really have that. We had issues where we had 3 or 4 players rushing off the line and we had players that weren't. And we just, Cardiff were able to pick that. I think for their first try, they had a big carry up the middle. Healy and Farrell get off the line really quickly and leaves it doglegs because Rory Scannell doesn't come up back on the inside. They come through that gap. Similar on the next phase, and Amos puts the Cardiff player away. So I think that was, Lockman got caught as well, not coming off the line. And I think against Toulouse, unless everybody comes up together or everybody just wedges, they've got to make sure that whatever they do, they do it together.
And I just think mentally they were probably a little bit off in that game the other night, even though the attack was exceptional at times and they scored some great tries. What a game it was to watch in Cork on Friday night. It was incredible. It was just non-stop from both sides. But the problem, I think, and Munster have got to be careful, you missed 25 tackles against Cardiff, which they did last Friday night. You missed 25 tackles against Toulouse and you're out of the Champions Cup. It's very, very, very simple. It will be easy this week for Munster to be focused. Champions Cup, Heineken Cup weeks, are always different. In my experience, when I played, there's a great buzz. There'll be an incredible excitement about playing this match. There'll be a fear that if you don't switch on in your defense, if you don't cover that inside line, if you fall off a tackle, that you're going to get punished. So that kind of fear creates an anxiety that makes you alert, and they've got to be incredibly alert. They're playing the 5-time champions, Niamh, and that's the
Yeah.
reality.
I kind of agree with Christopher Murphy. I watched a little bit of their game against La Rochelle this weekend. They don't seem to be as accurate as they were last season, and Munster can definitely win. I think lots of things have to align. But he also
I
brought up
would,
this point. Sorry,
yeah.
go for it. What are you going to
No,
say?
you finished there. Yeah.
He also brought up a point. Do you think Ben Healy has done enough to catch Andy Farrell's attention? He surely must be tops among the young tens in Ireland at the minute. Look, maybe New Zealand might be a bit too far away from him. You might be looking at next year's Novembers, but he's getting a lot of game time, and I feel like there's been a huge evolution in his game.
Yeah, he's looking composed. He's looking comfortable. His body language is good. He's making good decisions. So I think he's come on a lot. Whether I think New Zealand might be a little bit too early for him. He needs to be involved in a few squads first, and for Andy Farrell to get a close look. But he's shown a lot of promise, and that's really important. I think just getting back to the Cardiff match, and we'll try and wrap on this in a minute and look forward to Toulouse. So we've talked a lot in the last few weeks, Niamh, and lots of the listeners will be conscious of reading stuff online and the contrast we see now with the way Munster are playing in the last number of weeks. Weather conditions are better, confidence is higher, self-belief, the accuracy is better. We've seen a fairly consistent team in selection. There's been a few tweaks and changes here, which is understandable, but they seem to have found some cohesion. Okay, and I think that puts them in a good place for the weekend. One of the tweeters there is talking about grit, determination, being in their face, all relevant. But I think really you've got to be robust and you've got to make good decisions. And one of the things when this top end level of the game is you've got to win the collisions. So collisions, what I mean is when you carry with the ball, that you win that little moment, that little inch, whatever the case may be, you get a good body position, you present the ball well when you're tackled, the clean outs are good, and physically you're kind of winning the collisions, or at least having parity of not letting Toulouse run out over you, because they're a very big, physical, powerful side. You've got to protect the ball. Mauvaka, Julian Marchand, incredible at the breakdown. But one of the things that we've spoken about, the change we've seen in the last number of weeks, which has come with the consistency, selection and confidence, 17 offloads against Cardiff. That was the type of game. So I'll take you back to Connacht Munster at Christmas in the sports ground. One offload, one clean break. Munster had 7 clean breaks the other night against Cardiff. The concern for me, the one that jumps out, is the 25 missed tackles. But passes, 216 passes in the game on Friday night against Cardiff. 45 passes against Connacht. So there has been an obvious change here, whether it's the players that are pushing this, or whether the coaches have changed, or whether it's down to the weather or that consistency selection. We have seen a change. Players who stood out there, I thought Thomas Ahern was outstanding. Mike Haley was brilliant. I think Mike Haley is a great player. Sometimes what lets him down is his decision-making, the ability to see space outside him. He's a brilliant athlete, defends superbly. Just some of the decision-making. But it was great to see him have a man-of-the-match performance. Thomas Ahern was outstanding. He's going to come into the mix for the weekend. Does he start with Klein or with Wycherley? Does Jenkins start? I don't know. But I thought Thomas Ahern was brilliant. I think John Klein has to start at the weekend against Toulouse because of his physicality, his scrummaging, his power. But just to put Cardiff to bed, it was a really, really important win from a league point of view as well, because it puts Munster second in the table, which they could have been 8th last week. We spoke about away to Ulster. So they're second in the table on 56 points. The Sharks are on 56 in third. The Stormers on 56 in fourth. Ulster on 55 in fifth. The Bulls on sixth on 53 points. So for Munster to the last couple of weeks in the league has been very important. They're now in a position that if they go and beat Leinster in a couple of weeks in Dublin, that they'll have a home quarter. They win that home semi. So it's really significant. So I think it was job done the other night. It was positive. It was the negative side was the defence that we spoke about that they need to get right this week.
And to be fair, for most of the season, their defence has been brilliant. It's been what kept them in games. I think that a lot of those defensive issues were, for me, the changes in personnel. Some of those players haven't played rugby in a long time, and you're asking them to get up to scratch to that kind of level. And I like, I worked for Cardiff twice last year, in terms of when they came to Thomond Park, and I love watching them play. I think they moved the ball exceptionally well. I think Amos, Jared Evans, these type of players are really, really good and really quick on their feet, and they cause defences problems. I just do think, though, in the relation to that line speed issue, that that dog leg that has to be fixed, because the likes of Dupont and Ntamack will literally, will be able to find little weaknesses in that very, very quickly and very, very easily. But you're right. I just feel like these players are coming into a huge amount of form, confidence. Like I thought, I don't often, I'm not overly always exuberant about him, but I actually thought Sibo was excellent. I thought his footwork in around contact, he was very difficult to take down. I thought Jack Donoghue was really good again. I thought Peter Manny worked incredibly hard. For me, the big question mark now, as we put Cardiff to bed, will be how our front five deal with Toulouse, because I do think that we could be under pressure there.
So okay, it was to get what did it need to get right this week? So just to put it in context, Toulouse are 5 times champions. They have that history. They always turn up in the Champions Cup. Their pool stages this year were strange. They beat Cardiff in the first game in Cardiff 39-7. I actually worked in that game. They were in third gear, I think, and sloppy. And Cardiff were decimated, missing loads of players, but they won 39-7. Round 2 was a 0-0 draw against Wasps because of COVID. They were beaten in Wasps in round 3, 30 points to 22. Again, it was a poor performance, and we were seeing little chinks in their armor a little bit, and a Toulouse side that probably weren't at the same level as the year before. And then round 4, they had to forfeit the game because of COVID. Again, Toulouse were awarded that game 28 points to 0. So they qualified on 7 points, and they finished 7th in Pool B. So they barely scraped into the pool stages. And I remember thinking, they're potential winners now. They've scraped through here, and they'll get their business right when it gets to the knockout stage, because they'll have their players back. They'll find some form, and they have too much quality. So it's they're an incredible side. They beat La Rochelle at the weekend. Just in the league, they've played 24, obviously, won 13 and lost 11. That kind of suggests that this isn't the Toulouse we saw last year, that there is a bit of vulnerability there. All their French players, they have about 10, 11 involved with France, and they had incredible success winning the Grand Slam. So how did Munster beat this side with all their power, physicality and quality?
I think for Munster, case in point, if you look at Ulster were incredibly unfortunate not to beat them over the 2 legs. I thought they were exceptional in the first game. They moved the point of contact. They got over the gain line in big carries. They looked for soft shoulders. They kicked really well, and they fed the speed on the ouch. And I think that Munster have the ability to do that. I think, I imagine Keith Earls will come back in this weekend. Haley's in the form of his life. Sibo, I thought, was really, really good. And it's been a long time since he put back-to-back performances together, and this is a huge opportunity. He's been in France for the last few years. He knows Toulouse very incredibly well, so I fully believe that this is a Toulouse side that are very up and down. They've been struggling to put performances together. They obviously beat La Rochelle last week, but the previous, take Ulster aside, losing 1, winning 1 the previous time they lost to Toulon. So and Toulon aren't going well at all. So I'd imagine for them it's it's a mentality thing and whether they can get them to buy in. And as Mark said earlier on, there's over 31,000 tickets sold for the Aviva this weekend. It's obviously going to be painted red for Munster, and I think, if Munster can get up in their faces and make them as uncomfortable for them as Ulster did, say, in Toulouse, then you like to think they can come out the right side of the game.
Do you think that we could get a dose of reality this week? There's always a potential when you play a side like Toulouse. There's a couple of teams that you pick in Europe: Leinster, Toulouse, maybe Racing in the knockout stages, La Rochelle, that are just probably a level above with their depth and their quality and their international players. Munster, let's be real, are a level below that. But
Quinny, think about, of course they can. Of course they can get an absolute dose of reality. But for one of the best games that I watched last year was Toulouse versus Munster in Dupont Park. Like, Munster were able to live with the best team in Europe last year, and it was literally small defensive lapses. Really, a couple of times where they didn't get their exit strategy right, and Toulouse, after scoring, and Toulouse come back down and score 2 or 3 phases later. You know what I mean? So
is this team better equipped now to make good decisions and look back?
Yeah, I think so. Game? I think this is a better side than the Munster 12 months ago. 100%. I think they're playing better rugby.
Even without Ty Byrne, Dave Kilcoyne, Andrew Conway.
Dave Kilcoyne. Well, Andrew Conway is back training this week, so he could come back into contention. Dave Kilcoyne is the big one for me, I think. I just think Josh Wycherley's done very, very well. I think Jeremy Loughman's had a good season, but I just think in terms of that strength and depth and Dave Kilcoyne's experience of being an international rugby player, you need your best front 5 players. I think Ty Byrne, while a huge loss, he's had the last couple of seasons, he's been the best player for Munster by a long shot. I think the likes of Jack O'Donoghue, Kendellen, Thomas Ahern, John Klein, these guys are all playing exceptionally well at the moment. So while we miss his ability on the ground and his leadership in that line out, I do think we've got players that are stepping up to that. So for me, look, Killer is probably the big loss, and but he hasn't played in a long time for Munster, so you'd imagine that Wycherley and Jeremy Loughman are getting a huge amount of game time, getting more confident and understanding their roles a bit better. I just felt at times the weekend, that they were just a little bit sloppy. You'd like to imagine that this weekend, the emphasis on the detail would be much bigger.
So you mentioned Ulster a few minutes ago, and you spoke about the way they played, and I thought I was incredibly impressed. They had a sending off in the first game, which probably affected, I want to be respectful to Ulster. They were brilliant. They won the game by 6 points. Toulouse scored right at the end. They're a side that don't give up, and if you switch off for a minute, I think they can punish you, and they believe they can get back into games. So I think my experience of playing against Toulouse, and I always remember sitting in the bedroom the night before the Heineken Cup final in 2008, chatting to Ron and O'Gara, and the two of us were chatting about what we kind of, what's it going to be like and how good they are. And we kind of both agreed that if you hold on to the ball and you don't make mistakes and give them opportunities, sounds very simplistic, but they're a side that just continuously, and it's in their DNA, if a loose ball is there, or a loose pass or a poor kick, they can just cut you to shreds. And if you allow them to offload. So God be good to Axel. He used to always say when you played Toulouse over the years, chop, tackle them, bring them to ground, stop the offload or tag the ball. And I think the same applies nowadays, even still. Munster to get a lot of stuff right. And if they got to be, one poor decision defensively and you can be punished. And going back to the Ulster game in Belfast, Ntamack, Dupont, they were phenomenal. And they've shown that at international level. How do we stop these two guys? And what do you have to do? Do you need a hunter on the inside? If Ntamack steps back in, do you need someone tracking Dupont, the way he runs these support lines cross field? And he just always seems to be there for that inside pass to score tries. He scored in Thomond Park last year. We've seen it so many times. How do we stop these two guys? And if we stop them, does that give us, obviously I think gives us a way better chance of winning the game?
Yeah, hugely. And I don't think it's a case of literally shutting the two of them down, because I just think they have so much firepower everywhere else. I spoke about it already. It's got to be about the connections in the defence. So you've got to make sure that they're working in their threes. And every time, they come off the line, their inside and outside are coming at the same space and same pace. And I think at Cardiff the other night, that's kind of what worried me a little bit, and especially in that first half. We definitely had an issue where we had outside players coming up and we had inside players back on their heels a small bit. I think that if we go like that against Toulouse, we're going to be in trouble. I think if we continue to come up together and hunt on the inside and have that hustle, then for any player that stops that inside ball coming back in, and you're right. I think anybody that's on the far side of that ruck, and if they've got to be tracking Dupont's run to make sure that they get inside it. But he's an incredible player, and I just think that if you sit down on him and you focus on him, his ability to bring others into the game is just exceptional. And therefore, if you focus right on him, you're sitting in him and your tunnel vision, you're opening up little gaps either side of you, and he can pick you off really easily. He can make you look really silly. So, I think they've got to go as a unit, a defensive unit, focus this week on a defensive unit on those connections as opposed to going after players individually.
I think that's really relevant what you're saying. Munster have got to play as a team. They've got to play as a team at the weekend. They've got to be really well connected. They've got to probably go beyond their pain threshold as individuals. Their work rate has got to be through the roof. And if they hold on to the ball for long enough, I think they can trouble Toulouse and put pressure on them. But it's just those small little decisions and that accuracy that needs to be spot on. And dare I say, the power, the intensity, and the physicality, they're the things at this level of the game that you've got to match at least and get right. And then you can impose your own game. So just to put it in perspective, when you look at, I have a team here that played, a French team that played in the Six Nations, and you've got Jalanche in the back row, Francois Cross, Elstad, who didn't play. It's an incredible back row. They're big, tall, rangy, aggressive back row. Julien Marchand at hooker, or Mo Vaca, two internationals in the French team. Cyril Bay, Jean-Baptiste Gross on the bench. T-Bad Flamand, the back row stroke second row there as well. And then Ramos as well. So you're looking at 10, 11, and Charlie Faumuina tight it as well. So you're looking at 10 or 11 internationals. And like I was saying, Munster are going to be very, very conscious of this as regards the type of player they're going to be playing against. Let's hope that, the Aviva is going to be full of red. I'm sure there'll be some Toulouse supporters there, but it's an incredible task. Who would you pick? I'm going to put you on the line. Who would you pick at 9? We're going to wrap in a sec, but would you pick Murray?
Murray?
Would you start Murray or
Murray. I would go Murray, and it's not sliding Casey. I think he's having an exceptional season. It's just his ability to. We spoke about it last week. His ability to provide energy off the bench is huge. And you know what? The big thing for Munster is that they're like last week. Toulouse had to literally empty themselves to beat La Rochelle. They had to play their strongest team because that French league is so important to them. For lots of them, it's way more important than the European Cup. And so you'd like to think that, maybe Munster will have an edge there in terms of...
I'm not sure about Toulouse, Niamh. Ugo Mola was on the media after the La Rochelle game, the Toulouse coach, and he was quite grumpy that some French pundits were questioning where they were this year and that they couldn't fight on both fronts. He was pretty resilient and snarky as regards that they could. It's the business end of the season, and like 100%. I said, Toulouse kind of snuck into these playoffs. They're still one of the favourites, so it's an incredible task. Let's hope it's a special weekend for Munster. We do realise and we acknowledge that Toulouse are a phenomenal squad who probably haven't been playing as well this year as they did last year. Munster will need a complete performance. Maybe they will. The last few weeks, we've seen glimpses of a little bit of spark and bite in the team, and I'm sure it'll be a special day. Hopefully, can be a special day for Munster. We have no real other gossip or news. We're still waiting on the assistant coaches to be announced, and maybe that might, obviously this week, there's still talks ongoing with certain people. So hopefully we'll have updates on that next week. That's it for episode 30 of the Red 78. 30 episodes so far, Niamh. Well done. We're to make sure you get your podcast. I keep saying this every week. Just search for the Red 78 wherever you get those podcasts, and press the subscribe button. And don't forget forget to get in touch with us. You can tweet us on our own personal Twitter accounts, or tweet us at the Rugby Channel 15, or leave a comment on YouTube as well. So that's it. Just before we go, I'm getting a prediction off you. I'm not giving one, but I want your prediction. Will Munster win on Saturday?
Jeez, Quinny. Yeah, I think they will.
Okay, Munster will win. That'll do for me. Okay, enjoy your week, Niamh, and we'll chat to you next week. Hopefully we'll be celebrating, or we might be drowning our sorrows. But it's a tough challenge, but good luck, and talk to you next week.
Chat then.